Hello and good evening, everyone. We'll start off with a session. A very warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, our wonderful members of the audience, and fellow Rotaractors. Welcome to today's session entitled Moods and Minds. This is phase 2 of Moods and Minds. It is an initiative undertaken by the Rotary Club of Central Calcutta since 2019 to share information, create awareness, and address issues and challenges regarding mental health and well-being. The present times are challenging, as we all know. For the better part of this year, we have been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been extremely devastating for not just us as a community, but the entirety of the world, and it has affected people across the globe. And individuals are finding it challenging to navigate the new normal, as it has been called. A survey conducted by the Mavericks India, as reported in the New Indian Express, reported that at least 75% of the individuals surveyed stated that they found work from home challenging, and there has been an increasing blurring of personal and professional lives, which has taken a toll on mental health. So we found these facts and the present situation as it is to be extremely compelling and to create this need for to address queries and worries and thoughts that might be arising in individuals as a result of this present situation. So we created a form where we invited responses from our audience members and from people all over to send in the responses and queries regarding to their mental health and any other mental issues that they might be facing. And hence, this was the idea behind today's session. So now I would like to welcome our panelists for today. Our first panelist for today's session is Dr. Monisha Dasgupta. Dr. Monisha Dasgupta is currently an associate professor in the Department of Psychology, University of Calcutta. She has been teaching at the university for over 13.5 years. She is a recipient of National Merit Scholarship, Government of India at the undergraduate level, and University Research Fellowship in the Department of Psychology, University of Calcutta, for pursuing her doctoral research. She has jointly edited a book with her mentor, Professor Nilanjana Sanyal, and is one of the co-authors of the Indian adaptation of the Fairy Tale Test Manual, along with her mentor. She has to her credit a number of publications at the national and international level. Her research interests include personality, clinical psychology, projective psychology, and gerontology. Dr. Dasgupta is an honorary member of the Projective Fairy Tale Test Society, Athens, Greece, apart from her membership in other professional bodies. She is also an editorial consultant and reviewer of a number of international and national journals. So, ma'am, I would like to welcome you to today's session. Hopefully, we'll have a very enriching and insightful session like we did last time. Thank you, ma'am, for agreeing to come on board with us. I would now like to introduce the second panelist for today, Ms. Shampa Chaudhary. Ms. Shampa Chaudhary is a counselor and is specialized in clinical psychology with first class and distinction. She is a UGC NET qualified senior research fellow at the Department of Psychology, University of Calcutta. She has qualified with grade A at the Family Court Counselors course from Legal Aid Services, West Bengal. She has served at the Institute of Psychological Educational Research. She has also served at the army schools in Shukna and Barakpur as a counselor and is presently associated with the Ashok Hall Group of Schools. She is a founder member of Dhruv Tara Non-Line Counseling Association and a founder member of the School Counselors Association. She is a passionate theatre person and an ardent blog writer. So, ma'am, I welcome you to today's session. Hopefully, we'll have an interesting and enriching session like we did last time. Looking forward to seeing you address the queries that have been sent in by members of the audience. So thank you, ma'am, for coming on board with us. I would now like to begin today's session with the first query that has been sent in by via the Google form that we put out a few days earlier. So somebody has asked the question that how to cope with past trauma which keeps resurfacing during which of you would like to address that? Ma'am, please go ahead.
I feel, yes, this is a hard time. This is a difficult time, no doubt about it. Now, the students who is being probably disturbed by different kinds of negative thoughts because of a past trauma, or there could have been different kinds of negative experiences. I would say to live at the moment, not to not to emphasize on the past, not to make it more significant. In fact, if the person is if a person mindfully uh, remains committed to the present, then he or she would be able to enjoy the present moment and would not feel the past to be a stimulus to which might haunt the individual. My suggestion would be to cherish the moments that she has developed over time, the capacities that she has developed over time, perhaps resilience and other capacities, the strength points that she has developed, which would in turn serve as erasers for her or him, for the candidate to, I would ride over the stressful situation. So not to think about the past, not to think about the negative events of the past and magnify it when the present is lying in front of you. And if an individual has the confidence in one's own self, then one would be able to accept the present gracefully. I think that would help to answer the question.
Thank you. A wonderful response. Now, I would like to now move on to the second question. Um, Someone has sent in a question saying that since my parents are no more in this world and I share a strained relationship with my brother, my friends are a very important framework of support for me. And efforts are mutual with respect to friends. But then I don't differentiate between the time that I should be allotting to myself and for my professional life. I very often blur these lines. I already am suffering from lack of concentration, and with the time I've left, I end up wasting it. How exactly can I compartmentalize all this? I am serious about my career, but I end up feeling quite useless at the end of the day. Shampa ma'am, if you would like to address this.
Yes, thank you for that question. And since the person who has asked the question has, I think there is a vacuum in that person's life because he or she doesn't have his parents. And also since the relationship with the brother is strained, it must be even more difficult. So definitely he or she turns to the friends who are the next biggest support, I think, because at one age, I think, along with family, friends really do take up a very important part in one's life. So that is very important, and I'm glad to hear that at least the person has some good friends, and there is no, as he doesn't draw a line where the friends are concerned. But at the same time, it is a matter of concern if the professional life is getting blurred. So yes, there are ways to compartmentalize them, and it's not like they are not physical compartments, because many of you may still be working from home. For me, like I have to go back to my workplace, so I'm physically present in my workplace, so it's easier for me. It was getting difficult when I was working from home, but now it's easier. So you need to see whether you can go to office certain days if you're working from home and ask, or if you're working from office, then that's good enough. So the physical compartment is there, but the mental compartment is not there. So there are thought stopping techniques which you can practice, like, blanking out, putting your palms over your eyes like this, and just letting your mind go blank for a minute. So that's very good if you can actually let your mind go blank for a minute, because it's very difficult for the mind to be blank. And at the same time, when you get up in the morning, you just ask yourself, what is the maximum value I can create and how can I do it? So, to be able to work is also a very, very, I think, important a gift that we all have got for those of us who are working at such a time, because there are many people who have lost their jobs. There are many people who want to work but are unable to work because there is nobody really hiring at or paying you according to your qualifications. So if you still have your job, consider yourselves very, very gifted and lucky, especially if it's a private firm. Of course, if it's a government job, then you don't have much to worry about. But it's very important, as you said, as the person has said, that I want to be uh, valued at my workplace, and I want to do a productive day's work. So when you wake up in the morning over your cup of tea, or when you are still in bed, just think, what is the maximum value that I can create today through my work? And it's very nice, when you're valued as a very responsible person in your workplace, when you're looked upon with trust and your people rely on you, then I think that's the maximum that you can. I mean, money will come. Money today will maybe less, or tomorrow it may be more, or today I might not have a job, but I will get, if I have skills, abilities, and knowledge and qualifications, I will get a job. So that is very important. And remember, if friends are your friends, they will understand you. They will understand your being called away for work or being very busy with work, and they will value you no matter how busy you may be. So once in a while, which I also do, because I'm really unable to keep in touch with my friends, but once in a while what I do is give them a thumbs up sign, or I send them a message, how are you doing? So things like that. And I think by that you will be able to see that gradually you're also being able to concentrate on your work, and you're becoming a reliable and valued person at your workplace, and your friends are also there to support you. But I do hope at some time, if possible, you can gradually work upon the relationship you have with your brother, because I think he's the only one now of the family, the closest, the near immediate family, and not doing anything artificial, but gradually, just accepting, or maybe looking upon him as a friend only, not as a brother. And because, in friends, we overlook a lot of flaws, but when it's family, or people we do not like, then we look at the flaws only, we do not look at the good points. So look at what the good points your brother has, and see if you can gradually bridge the gap with your brother. I do not know whether that answers the question, but later on, if there are any doubts, I'll clarify them again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that response. That was really something insightful, and I hope that whoever has asked this question, that person has benefited from your insightful response. So, and they can follow up with you if the need arises. So, moving on to the next question, somebody has stated that, ma'am, there is a friend of mine who is very shy. He wants to talk to people, but he can't do it with ease. He overthinks at every situation. He overthinks about every situation. He has the fear that he may say something stupid during any conversation and people will make fun of him. My question is that how can he overcome this fear? Also, what makes a shy person shy? Why do some people develop shyness? Over the time, he has become less shy, but it is not enough. He has made a very slow progress. How can he overcome his shyness completely?
I think Manisha ma'am can answer that. I think we'll take it alternately then.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Shyness as a trait. Shyness is a personality trait. Okay, so there's nothing wrong in being shy, firstly, but if a person is shy, uh, there might be some kind of situations where he or she may feel a little odd, or as the person said that this individual has some difficulty in maybe public performance or in some kind of performance before others where he or she feels self-conscious, excessively self-conscious. People might look at me, people might evaluate me, or people may laugh at me. My query is why are we giving so much importance to my own self? We are here, we have a term called narcissism. Narcissism is self-love. Too much of self-love means where somebody is is preoccupied with himself or herself to a great extent. Now, if somebody is not good in, say, public speaking or some kind of performance in public because of anxiety issues or because of shyness, then one can think of working with those areas. How? There can be different ways. Just like being not giving significance to those thoughts of being evaluated by others. Just be your own self. Yeah, just being your own self, relax, take a deep breath in and out before the performance so that like one is not thinking about the results, the fruits of the performance, whether he or she would be accepted or not. First, one needs to accept the self initially. If that is there, then whether others are there to accept myself or not, that hardly matters. So my answer would be something like shyness is a trait which also has its positive aspects. So it is nothing that has to be altered always. There's a beauty behind shyness also, I would say. But at the same time, if somebody is extremely shy, which is making him to refrain from different activities, then that shyness needs to be worked with. Yeah. And one has to look at it. Firstly, one has to accept himself or herself at the very beginning. So some steps, small steps can be like appreciating yourself, appreciating your own, say, activities, or even the way you look, the way you carry yourself. Just have 1 minute or 2 minutes of giving thanks to your own self, appreciating yourself at the end of the day, or while you look in the mirror, or whatever. So these small steps also would have would bring about a change in the behavior, overall behavior gradually, and finally in the mental set. And if this is also coupled with some activities like um, trying to mix, trying to interact with more individuals, initially consciously, to some extent, that would also ease off the shyness. That would ease off the shyness to start with. And one needs to understand that everybody is not there to accept me. And I would not be ready, I would not be expecting a situation where each and every one would be there to accept me. There would be others also to criticize. But let me try my best let me try my best and see, and I would accept whatever is there in my platter. So I think that would probably help to answer the question.
Thank you, ma'am, for the response. I'm sure the person who asked this question is definitely going to benefit from those wise words. And I particularly like the fact that you stated that I mean, there is a kind of beauty and shyness, which I personally agree with. And thank you, ma'am, for the response. Now, moving on to the next question to Shampa, ma'am. Uh, how to do anger management and survive anxiety? Another person, in relation to this, somebody else has also asked that why am I getting so angry without any reason, and they are also feeling depressed always.
Right. So I do not know the age of the person, but yes, anger is a very natural emotion along with anxiety and aggression or depression also. So you need to understand, maybe in your subconscious, you do understand also what is making you angry or what is making you anxious, what is making you depressed. Because I think all of us are thinking and feeling individuals, and we've all gone through our moments of anger, anxiety, depression, frustration. So you need to understand what are the blocks that are making you angry or depressed or anxious. Once you understand, once you're able to pinpoint on the reason, say for example, like during the COVID, I mean the pandemic is not yet over, and I was very happy. For my own example, I'll tell you, I was very happy working from home because I could take care of home also. I have a number of pets, I could take care of them also, and I could do very good work also from home. But suddenly they felt that those who are in administration should now start joining, and I was not feeling very happy about it. But I couldn't say no. I had to join. It was making me angry. And then I thought that why am I angry? They are calling me because they rely on me. They're calling me because they want me. So I tried to look at the positive side of it, that I am valued as a person in my workplace. So that is why they want me to come back. And truly enough, after Bijaya Dashami, when one of my bosses called me up to ask that, are you coming? I said I was coming. Then there was a COVID case, so we were all asked to be at home. She said, no, you start coming now. And there were some challenges at home which I had to settle. I said, okay, I asked for one day only. I started going, and then suddenly, a lot of people lost their jobs in my organization also. Then one person, husband went off to Siliguri, so she left the job. So at this moment, I'm doing the job of a number of people. I was initially very angry. I came back home and told my husband, I think I'm going to put in my papers. This is not the way that I can go on working. But he told me that why don't you give yourself a week at least to settle down in your new responsibilities. Sure enough, when 2 or 3 days went by, I had actually, everything I could settle down. And then I felt very happy that things that I thought I could never do, I started doing. Things I thought, like Google Sheets and all were like French, Greek, and Latin to me. People are doing on Google Sheets, people are entering remarks. And from a counselor looking into emotional problems or taking class workshops, I also became an admission counselor who had to, call up parents, go through mail, schedule interviews. So initially it made me very angry, and it made me anxious also, not just angry, because I was very scared whether I'll be able to do the job well. And if I'm not able to do the job well, maybe they'll ask me to leave. And I thought I'll tell that, no, this is not my forte, I cannot do it. But then something very challenging came into me. And I said, no, I'm not going to be depressed. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to be anxious, because I'm going to give it a try. And after giving it a try, if I'm not able to do, then I'll decide. But soon enough, I could, within 2, 3 days, I understood everything. I could get everything under my control. And I have started enjoying the job, the new responsibilities now. So this is from my personal point of view. But I think youth have a lot of emotion and passion in them, so and energy also. So if they are not able to channelize that, then definitely there's a lot of pent up feelings, there's a lot of pent up anger and anxiety and frustration and depression. So it's very important to keep yourself busy. and find a meaning in life. And your meaning in life can change. Say after 2 years, after 3 years, the meaning can change. But if at this moment there is a meaning in life, for example, if you tell me what is my meaning in life at this present moment, it is my meaning in life is to be with the wonderful Rotarians who have thought Dr. Dasgupta and me valuable enough to call us again and again for your panel discussions. So at this moment, this is my meaning in life. At this moment, you are the most important people for me. And that is my meaning in life. Although ordinarily I would have cribbed had I had to go to any other meeting after my work. They said, no, this is, so many youngsters waiting for me. I cannot disappoint them. So at every moment, you have to see what is my purpose and my meaning in life. And sure enough, you'll see all your negative feelings are going and all your positive energies, your positive cells are getting charged. And the more you keep yourself busy with activities and work, the more you see that you do not really have much time to feel anxious or depressed. So the moment you feel anxious, depressed, there are progressive muscle relaxation therapy, which you can find on YouTube. There are systematic desensitization, processes by which you can, relax yourself. But I think in life also, in daily functioning also, there are many things we can do which take away our anxiety and our depression, like having a cup of coffee with your good friend, or taking up, or even banging the phone, or even, howling at your friend that I'm feeling so depressed, I'm feeling so anxious, like I did not go to a psychologist. I went to my husband to tell him that I'm feeling terrible. Next day, I told the senior vice principal and the headmistress I'm feeling terrible. And they said, no, 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 you can do it. That's why we gave you the job. So that was it, So go to somebody who makes you feel good, not worse. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. A lot of inputs to taken from there, like reevaluating certain things when you feel anxious or angry. That is something we could all learn from this session today. And I particularly like the fact that you said that we should constantly keep evaluating our lives to find meaning in new things, and constantly keep seeking meaning, because that is something we've learned in our college as well, like when we were doing pauses with Manisha ma'am. In fact, she said to constantly keep looking for the meaning in your existence. So that is something I particularly liked about this. So moving on to the next question. Somebody has said how to deal with constant overthinking and expectation from people, even though you always just get disappointed in the end and get entangled in more overthinking and disappointment. How to let go of things that aren't even in our control. In relation to this, somebody also has said that I can't stop thinking about my earlier mistakes. I waste a lot of time overthinking about them. How do I get rid of that? So if, ma'am, you would like to address that.
This question, both these questions have a similarity in that the individuals, they are focusing more on the negative aspects of a past event or events. I would say the best, like if the person is not being able to come out from his or her ruminative thoughts, and thereby the significance of the event is getting aggravated. So he or she is intentionally adding a sticky kind of attention to the negative events which were there in the past, which had occurred in the past. Perhaps there were too much of expectations, and he or she could not fulfill, and the person keeps on even spoiling the present, thinking about the past. So my point is, if the past was not satisfactory, now the present is there. The present is something which is different from the past. Now, if the person tends to even think about the past, how negative the past was, that is that colors the present, then the present also becomes spoiled. So if we consider the word present, the word present is can be referred to as a gift. It means gift. So if we utilize, if we go for the essence of the word present and understand the giftedness of each and every moment, by being mindful, by being mindful of the moments, and appreciate the significant exchanges, or the points which have helped the individual to feel cherished. So they are the ones which can also be thought of, which can also be focused. So why pay attention to the negative events and be saddened by it? Yes. So my answer would be more towards focusing to wear a positive filter, to wear a positive lens in the way to look at life, and to be optimistic in terms of the present as well as the future, and not to consider the negative aspects or the disappointments of the past in a magnified manner. They were there because that's a part of life, but that doesn't mean that that is life on its entirety. So there are plus points as well as negative points. So if we can cling on to these precious moments which we can cherish of, I think that would help, that would provide us with positive energy to move forward, and not to have the pains, the stings of the uh, past negative days.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we should. That is something we could all learn from that response. That we should cherish the present for what it brings to us, and appreciate it for all that it gives to us for the present moment. And that is something that we could all take away from that, actually. So now moving on to the next question. Somebody has asked that how to cope with depressing thoughts relating to studies and career in this COVID scenario. And somebody else has also asked, what if I fail in chasing my dreams?
Yes, so this is a very natural fear which many students might be having. And it's also a very natural fear that what if I cannot accomplish my dreams? But, you know, we have to dream, because as APJ Abdul Kalam had also said that your dreams are not what you see in your sleep, but it's dreams are those which do not let you sleep. So it's very important for all of us to have dreams, because if we do not have dreams, life is meaningless. Life is again, we are living without a goal. So it doesn't matter what goal you have as long as you have a goal. And as I said, similar to meaning, the meaning may change after 2 years. Similarly, your goal may change after 2 years. So if you're a student at this moment, it might be passing your semester exams, doing that well, being able to attend your online classes, taking your assignments, submitting your projects. So we have to see which are the areas of time wastage, because sometimes as human beings, we tend to waste time also. So we have to see which are my areas of time wastage, why I have not been able to complete something that I should have been able to do. And always, I think it's always a good idea to wake up and think that, why am I still living? What is my goal in life? What is it that I want to do? What is the meaning of my existence? What is my purpose in life? So if we ask ourselves these questions, life becomes very meaningful, life becomes very purposeful. Life is not, we are not just drifting in life. So at times, yes, I know when you're very anxious and depressed, and maybe sometimes when we face failures, it is very natural. Because first and foremost, a person who has not never made a mistake has never learned. So it's all good if you've made a mistake. It's good if you failed at times, because if all the time we are tasting success, then we become very, very, overconfident, and we become very arrogant. So sometimes it's very important to face disappointment. Sometimes it's important to make mistakes, to understand that I'm a human being too. And remember that Muhammad Ali used to say that I used to hate every moment of my training. But I said, do not quit now. And then, you live the rest of your life like a champion. So there might be very harsh training moments we go through. There might be times when we have to do things that we do not like doing. But remember, at the very end, it's all for your good, because, you know, no moment is ever wasted. I think, as Manisha ma'am was also saying in the beginning, that we learn from every moment of our lives. So every moment is a purposeful moment, every moment is a creative moment, every moment is a constructive moment. Even your hell, even your despair, even those have something positive, because those actually make you want to come out of such feelings. So because somebody who's written, I'm sure that there's a lot of positive thought behind that also, because that person is not liking being in this kind of state. So if you have to see whether it is clinical depression or not, because if it's happening despite all that you have tried, is still the feelings of depression and anxiety and your fears of failing and not being able to achieve your dreams do not go, then probably you will need a few sessions with a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And but if it goes, if you see that no, I'm able to, and we all need to see something that will help us out of the depression. For somebody it may be a cup of tea in the morning, for somebody it may be able to see a pet, for somebody it may be just going out into the balcony and looking at the greenery around, for somebody it may be going for a jog, somebody it may be a piece of music. So each one of us have our own repertoire of experiences and our repertoire of likes, which give us that motivation to go ahead with our dreams and our goals. And as long as you're you know what are those will help you. Again, I will see for those of you feeling that if I am unable to achieve my dreams, let me tell you, we have all gone through, we have all felt that fear. And because we felt that fear, it made us want to do something extra so that I could achieve my goal. And another fear, the way to conquer fear is do the thing that you're scared of. So if I'm scared to get into the swimming pool, sometimes we push a person into the swimming pool, because then that way the person will start learning how to swim, because the person has to come out of the water. So similarly, if you're scared of your exams, so take up your book and start studying. No, study one page, read one page, let nothing get into your head, but just read it. You see something, you'll see at the end of it, your brain has registered something. And the next hour, you'll see your brain has registered something more. And next day, you'll see you're able to grasp something more. So this way, nobody overnight becomes very confident. No, confidence comes by doing only. Confidence comes through practice. Confidence comes through training. So your confidence will come, and do not fear, you will achieve your goals. And all the best to the person who has asked this question, that may all of you achieve your goals. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for highlighting that failures can also serve as important teaching experiences, and for telling us to inculcate little pleasurable rituals that give us the motivation to chase our dreams, and that fear can also serve as an extra push towards achieving our goals. So I hope that the people who had asked this question, they benefit from your insight, and if needs be, they can seek you out for further advice, or seek or go for professional help if they feel so, if they feel that is necessary. Then moving on to the next question. Um, Moving on to the next question, somebody has asked that I cannot get into studying. I have had a break due to exams, and my online classes are going on, piling up, creating a backlog, and I have a routine, but I become very lazy every time I try it. Plus, there has been a recent breakup, and I'm still hungover, feeling that is not helpful at all. I am becoming a sloth, and I do not want to be. May have lost my relationship because I put very less effort in it. I do not want to lose my chance at my career due to the same thing, especially when I achieved it with a serious process of exams and interviews. I do not know what to do, and with exams coming, it is becoming harder. How can you how can you deal with this particular situation?
Uh, Whoever has sent this question, uh, the person has, for the time being, uh, quite a number of problems, quite a number of challenges, I would say. Firstly, there is the pandemic with which all of us, we are facing. Yeah, and we are affected, and especially since this person is a student and he or she has been attending the online classes also, where he says that the classes are also getting piled up. So the amount of studies that's getting piled up, the person is not being able to concentrate. At the same time, there is a break in the relationship, and the person feels disappointed. He or she blames himself for it, the problem, which may not be the actual reason also. That is a completely different kind of an issue. But for the person who has sent us the question, the person said, I'm considering myself as a sloth. I would say, please don't label yourself so negatively. Nobody, none of us, we have the right to label ourselves so negatively. Instead, uh, yes, there had been a breakup. There are certain problems some challenges in the present moment that is disturbing his or her peace, and the person is feeling anxious to cope. Yes, but uh, if the person can learn to compartmentalize firstly between his studies and relationships, then I think that would help to solve a greater portion of the problem. Yes, not mingling the emotions of disappointment, sadness, etc., to seep inside in his studies and affecting the studies by being committed to the studies when the person is studying, and at the same time when the person is thinking about his or her relationship, he or she may think about his same mistakes or no, or certain other errors that he or she had committed. But I would say, just to give it some time, give the relationship some time to see how, even if he or the person feels that it has been broken, just see whether it's actually broken, or and maybe after some time, after some kind of effort, there are chances of patch up. Yes, and if there is at all no chances of patch up, I would say, whatever has happened, that has been for good. that has been for good. The person himself has said perhaps he had not provided sufficient amount of time to maintain, to nurture the relationship. So most likely this individual is kind of retrospecting and has already been in a position to find out some of his or her flaws. So my suggestion would be to um, uh, not to mingle the two things, studies and relationship. Secondly, the person also said that there has been an increase in lack of discipline in his daily routine. This, I would say, is a very important aspect. Even getting up, say, because of the pandemic situation, because of the studying from home and having online classes, many individuals, we have developed some kind of habit of sleeping till a long periods and maybe waking up just 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the classes and rushing off to the if we can have some amount of disciplining in our system, then also physiologically our brain, our central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, it would be uh, active. It would be made energized so as to uh, follow the diurnal pattern of activities, and the person will not feel himself to be lazy throughout the day. And at the end of the day, if he can tell himself, yes, the day has been worthy enough in terms of maybe learning a particular chapter or preparing myself for the exam in a better way, or maybe spending some time in doing one's hobbies or whatever, or maybe even looking into the errors that he or she had done by mistake in the relationship. I think these would help the person to not to make such errors in future, and the person will learn from his mistakes, and that would help the individual to be a stronger, a much more resourceful and resilient individual. Yeah, that is what I feel.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we could all do with a bit of inculcation of self-discipline during these times, because I think in the past 7 or 8 months that we've been at home, a lot of us have become a bit lax with the kind of routines that we used to live with in the like pre-pandemic situation, and we've all grown used to a bit of oversleeping at times. So I think this is some advice that all of us could benefit from, inculcating discipline and trying to involve oneself in a routine and follow that as much as possible. So moving on to the next question, someone has asked, how can you deal with the mental health problem of someone at home?
Yes, it's a very important question, and it's a very difficult, to answer it also, because there is no one formula for dealing with a person who has a mental illness or a mental condition. So first and foremost, it is to understand that the person who has a mental illness or a mental condition is not purposely behaving that way. So there may be neurological conditions, there might be biological conditions, there might be social. We do not know. I mean, you would know, the person who has asked would know actually what's gone wrong, which is making the person difficult to live with. So I hope the person who has asked this question, I hope you have taken your family member to a psychiatrist or have sought professional help, because that is very important. You know, in Indian society, what I've generally seen is that people readily go to a doctor, but they're very, very unwilling to go to a psychiatrist or follow up with a counselor or a psychologist, which is very important because it is not just our bodies, it's our minds and souls also, which are very important for us to be functioning on an optimal level. So first and foremost, we should be very patient. It is, I know, very difficult to be patient with a person who has a mental illness, but we have to be very patient and understanding, and we ourselves might need counseling at times. So it is very important, you know, at such points, family counseling or going in for some kind of therapy. So the person has not mentioned what kind of illness, but I'm sure the person knows, and it's very important to seek out professional help in such cases. It's very important for all members to have family counseling together, because this is what I was suggesting my colleague also about 2 days back. She's lost a lot of weight. She had come to school for something, and then I told she's unmarried. She stays with her parents, and her mother suffers from some kind of mental, where she becomes very violent also. It's recently developed. They've taken her to a psychologist also. There's a lot on my colleague. And then I told her that, how are you feeling? She said that I don't really feel like I need to go to a psychologist now. So I've been trying to look up, you know, for a family counselor. I said, I think you all could benefit from this. So it becomes very important. And another thing is that certain very general tips which I can give you is ignore the unwanted or the undesirable behavior unless it's very, very serious. So ignore that and reward the positive behaviors, reward the behaviors that are positive. Wherever you see, you know, that the family member is behaving in certain ways that are good for the family, that which is right, which you've liked, then reward those, you know. So supposing that person has done some job or cooked a meal, so, you know, praise that person, because, you know, all of us thrive on praise and motivation. All of us grow through praise. It's very easy to criticize, it's very easy to find flaws, but it's very difficult to focus on the good points of that person. You know, there is no magic formula for mental illness, and there is no general formula also, but it is just by regular counseling, medication, therapy, and getting that person to be involved with activities which really helps that person also come out from such mental illnesses, because for some illnesses there is no cure also. No, but there is control, and a person starts functioning on his or her optimal level. By way, there might be certain unpleasant situation at times, but they would have, the frequency would have reduced, the duration would have reduced, the intensity would have reduced. So we have to work towards such a functioning by which the daily functioning becomes at a more, you know, is more optimal, and it is more pleasant, and the unpleasant moments are less. You know, especially for problems like schizophrenia and depression, or bipolar disorder, actually they have no control over it unless they are going for medication and therapy. So we have to be very understanding towards such conditions. Thank you. Thank you. You can go to the next question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. I think we should all we should all inculcate a bit of understanding and be patient with individuals who have mental illnesses, because it is very hard for them. And as friends and family and as caregivers, we should also be a little more understanding of them and have a bit of awareness and try to educate ourselves regarding the problem being faced by them, so that we can adequately help them and us in the process. So moving forward to the next question. Somebody has said that currently I am going through a difficult time. I am hearing I am having continuous flashes of disturbing images and situations regarding my loved ones whenever I'm not engaged with anything. I am not being able to sleep because of it. This is hampering my health to a great extent.
Uh, having disturbing thoughts of related to one's loved ones, this can be a kind of an obsessive thought, that is an unpleasant thought, a distressing thought, which is provoking anxiety, intense anxiety within this individual. Perhaps from the question that it appears that this person perhaps is having some kind of such thoughts. Now, one needs to clarify what kind of thoughts are these, like, say, for instance, thoughts of thinking that the loved ones are no longer there, or they might meet accidents or whatever. If similar, these are some kind of thoughts that are making the individual concerned, that are making the individual distressed, one needs to know that these are certain thoughts which are not in reality. Yeah, they are not in reality, but because of intense amount of anxiety, because of the fear of having something uncontrollable into the life situation, into the present situation, the person perhaps is inviting those thoughts because of some kind of neurochemical changes in the brain, yeah, at the neurotransmitter level. If these are there, if these are repetitive thoughts and the intensity of these thoughts are very high, then one also needs to be aware of whether there are any repetitive behaviors. Repetitive behaviors, which we label them as compulsions, whether there are any compulsive behaviors like counting or washing or checking, or there can be different or ordering, or there can be other kind of compulsions also which accompany the unwanted thoughts. So many a times what happens is the obsessions and the compulsions come hand in hand, and it is very difficult for such thoughts and the behaviors to just go away, because the more you don't want not to think of them, the thoughts tend to grip. The grip of those thoughts increases, and it has a great amount of distress. So if that is the situation, is judge the intensity. And if it is like this means that the person is suffering from intense amount of anxiety, which is having some kind of manifestations in these manner. So it is best advisable at that point to seek some medical help, a psychiatrist's help, who would give some kind of medicines to bring about the balance in neurochemicals, and that can also be accompanied with professional consultation with a psychologist or a therapist, psychotherapist, who would help the individual to make him understand that these thoughts are irrelevant. These thoughts are unwanted thoughts. They are thoughts, they are magical thoughts. So if you place less importance, the lesser you have importance to these thoughts, the more you can be in a position to distract yourself from those thoughts and work effectively, work constructively, and perhaps you would be able to come out of the situation. It depends on the intensity of the thoughts and those undoing behaviors. Now, one that the clinician and the practitioner would be able to understand, but if the person has such kind of thoughts at the beginning, I think with some amount of regular treatment, one would be able to handle these thoughts and would have some self-regulatory mechanisms to keep the unwanted thoughts under control. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that response. I hope whoever asked that question has been sufficiently found their questions sufficiently answered and will seek professional help as you advised. Now, moving on to the next question, lacking self-love and identification. Also, identification problems are also severely struck with mood swings. Please, like, what do you think I should do?
Yes. Self-love and what else you said?
Lacking self-love and identification problems, also severely struck with mood swings. What do you think I should do?
Yes. So I think although we should not become narcissistic, but I think it's very important for all of us to love ourselves. As Manisha ma'am had also earlier said, that it's very important to accept ourselves. So self-love will begin when we accept ourselves and we do not compare ourselves to each other or to the other person. Because those of you who've done psychology, and we know that each one of us is a unique individual. So each one of us is a unique being with unique traits and unique abilities and skills. So some of them may be general, some may be similar, but there is something unique in all of us, and each one of us is a unique unique and precious human being, and a beautiful human being. So the moment we understand that, then we start accepting ourselves also. So the self love is lacking because you have not accepted yourself. It is very important, as Manisha ma'am had earlier said, that you look at yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I'm good. Yes, I have these abilities. And, so because of this lack of self love, you are unable to identify, that where do I stand in society? Where is my stance in, what is my status in society? How do I rank amongst my friends, or how is it in the class or wherever in place? How do people perceive me? So first and foremost, remember one thing, that if you love yourself and respect yourself, you can earn that love and respect. You may not earn the love of everybody, and you may not earn the respect of everybody, but as long as you love and respect yourself, others will also start respecting you, whether they love you or not. And of course, there will be people who will love you also. And the mood swings can be because you have not accepted yourself. It could be because certain things do not go your way. So that could be the reason for the mood swings. Or it could be if they are very frequent and if they're very persistent, then it might be a clinical issue also. You need to be able to distinguish between that the mood swings happen when certain things do not go your way, when certain things make you angry. And are you very, very susceptible to the environment, very, very vulnerable to your environment? Or do you also make certain effects on the environment? Because we are human beings, organisms living in the environment, and we cannot be separate from our environment. But when we are so vulnerable emotionally or mentally that we allow our environment to dictate us, then definitely we will always be swayed by external factors. And there will be nothing strong and internal within you. So it is very important to develop that sense of identity, a sense of self, by which you start feeling positive about yourself. You have a positive self identity, and you will be able to have a better control over your moods. So as such, mood swings, all of us go through different kinds of mental state, during the day, and we might start our day being very happy, you know, and we look at ourselves in the mirror and we've had a good night's sleep and we're feeling very happy and refreshed. The next moment something happens, there's too much of sugar in the tea, and temper goes for a toss. So it's like to see, okay, I mean, how many of us think, okay, let me put it down the drain and let me make myself a fresh cup of tea. So many things can go wrong during the day, but if you maintain your calm and composure, then you're likely to be able to have a control over your moods, because it is very important to develop that calm and composure, which comes with time. It's not that everybody develops it overnight. It's not that every day is a very good day, every day is a very calm day, uh, because we are human beings. So certain days you may be at your volatile worst, and certain days you may be at your peaceful best. No, but what is very important is, do not hold yourself responsible or guilt. Do not feel guilty about it. But if there has been a bad moment and there has been a very bad scene or a very unpleasant moment, just think that, okay, just like this was beyond my control, I can now bring back things under my control. And uh, the best part is that when you have been off your control, then if you've hurt somebody, then you go, the best part is to go and give that person a hug and say, I'm sorry. Because saying sorry doesn't make us lesser human beings, it makes us better human beings. We learned about the three magic words when we were children: please, thank you, and sorry. So that really works even now, even in our middle age it's working. So one is that. And if you would have remembered a play, I do not know, where this girl, she doesn't love herself because she's very plain. She's the only daughter in the family. The rest, and she doesn't get married because she feels that I'm very plain and nobody would quote me or ask me out for a date. And becomes very shy, until there comes a person who makes her feel very loved and very wanted, because all through her life she has allowed people to judge her. But it's only when this visitor comes across, as the guest comes, and he makes her feel that no, she's also a very beautiful human being, and he takes her to the mirror and say, every day you look at yourself in the mirror and say that I'm beautiful, and I'm a wonderful human being. So for people with very low self esteem, this is a very important, this mirror game is very important. And look at yourself in the mirror and think, what are the good things about me? Look at your CV, look at what your achievements so far. Do not look at your failures. Look back and see what you have achieved so far, what you're capable of achieving further. I think you will be very surprised at what you never even thought that you have. So life is a process of self-discovery, self-exploration. And the more you do it, the more you'll say, no, these are the things I have. But then it's very important not to compare yourself to anybody. The moment we start comparing and we think that this person has this quality but I don't have, then it's that person also might be thinking, oh, she has that quality but I don't have it. You do not know what the other person is thinking. So it's very important to reflect on your abilities, your qualities, learn from the qualities of the other, because we are something that we are born with certain qualities. We inculcate some along the way. We inculcate by such interactions, listening to each other, uh, listening to different viewpoints, mixing. It's also very important in life to have very positive influences in your life. Be they your friends, be they your colleagues, be they your teachers, your mentors, whoever. It's very important to have people from whom you learn. They can be people who are even much better than you. But like there's a saying that a blue fly, if it clings on to the tail of a horse, it can travel 1,000 miles. By itself, it cannot travel. But if I'm clinging on to the tail of a horse, of a galloping horse, then I can travel 1,000 miles. So life is like that. Have inculcate positive and influences, resourceful influences through which you will continue to grow and learn. And you will see you have started. You will see how what an impact you're making on others, and how others are feeling that they have learned from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for that response. I think we can all do with learning from those around us, be it whether they're older than us, younger than us, everybody has something to teach us. And I think we could all do with actually implementing that and learning from those around us and learning to love ourselves in the middle of what is turning out to be a very difficult 8 months so far. So moving on to the last few questions, somebody has said that somebody has asked how to have control over mental stress after attending daily online classes and online exams.
This question is very, I would say, time specific. Yes, attending online classes, webinars, or any kind of online interactions is the new normal, is one of the patterns of our new normal, but it also has it it brings about a lot of challenges. It is difficult for individuals to be attentive for long, to stare at the screen and to be mindful of the words that are being poured. Yeah, so I would say yes, take some small breaks after the online classes, though yeah, it is advisable if one can have even a few minutes of some breaks after they attend to some online session. And if it is possible, then one can even say the entire day is not full of online activities. So if one can sandwich the routine of himself, the daily routine, with some kind of filler activities which are rejuvenating, which provide himself or herself with enormous amount of energy, like engaging in a hobby, can be painting, can be listening to music, can be listening to song, anything that would also help to relax the muscles, relax the brain, the central nervous system, and would help the person to become much more attentive when he needs to be in the online sessions. This is firstly. And there can be other ways also. You going for some breath meditation. One can engage in routine activity of some exercises with the breath. Yes, being mindful of the breath, that would also help the individual to being mindful of inhalation and exhalation just for a few counts, 5 counts or 10 counts is wonderful. If a person can increase his time in concentrating activities like even reading storybooks or some other activity which are relaxing for the individual, that would help the person to combat the stress, the enormous stress that comes up with online sessions, and especially being glued to the screen of a gadget like a computer. So I think if one learns that it's almost over 8 months now. So if one can learn to adjust to the new normal, yet at the same time keep some time for engaging oneself with me time. That is, me time, healthy me time would help the person to have a positive vibe and look at the stressor even in a condition where it is no longer so much distressing. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, for that response. I think uh, we have time for one more question, probably. So, I would like to ask the last question for today's session. Somebody has asked, what are the causes of schizophrenia?
Okay, I think that Manisha ma'am is in a better position to answer. She's the academic psychologist and the practitioner who's
Ma'am,
put
you can answer
multiple
it if you
tasks.
want.
But I think that, yes, I will hand it over to Manisha ma'am because I trust her to give a more satisfactory answer than me on that. But it could be, anything. It could be biological because we know that for any condition, there's a biological, there might be socio-cultural or psychological conditions. So these are the three, broad causes. Now, if the person wants a more detailed answer, I would ask Manisha ma'am to take over. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Shambhu ma'am has absolutely hit the target itself. It's just additional. Yeah, it's schizophrenia. It's a major disorder, psychiatric disorder, which is actually caused by a number of different factors. And till date, no, one cannot really segregate a single factor. So there are a number of different researchers, they say there's different studies that tell us that there are different kinds of factors like genetic factors or biological factors, some physiological factors. There are chemicals in the brain like serotonin, dopamine, which are especially dopamine. There's a hypothesis called the dopamine hypothesis where dopamine is secreted to a higher extent. And so the antipsychotics, which are actually prescribed to such individuals, they tend to decrease the dopamine level so that the equilibrium, the physiological equilibrium gets restored. So this can be one of the major factors. Apart from these factors, there are other, like as Shampa ma'am has already said, that there are psychosocial factors. Like there are some kind of parenting where we have terms called cold, schizophrenic mothers or cold mothers. Yeah, so there are some faulty kind of communications like schisms or skews, and faulty communication is maybe picked up in terms of certain cues by the child, who gets confused because of faulty communication in the family, and some seedlings of mistrust, some seedlings of suspiciousness, or some erratic behavior like unorganized behavior, disorganized behavior, disorganized thought patterns. They may also may start developing within the individual. So there are different kinds of schizophrenia and there are different types of reasons for schizophrenia. So basically, schizophrenia is a particular kind of disorder where there is increased amount of withdrawal from reality, and there's loss of contact. There can be some kind of psychotic symptoms like hallucinations, delusions, and all. So there are a number of factors which may uh, come into come into play for a particular case. But therefore, in order to understand a case, we need to uh, take the case history and tailor the management, tailor the treatment according to the case history. So even though there are similarities in causes and underlying factors, but each and every client is different. Each and every client is unique, and they need to be provided with their management. They require their management in a unique manner. That is what I feel.
I think we are going to take on one last question that has been sent in the chat box. Somebody has said that how to cope up with sebophobia, which is the fear to eat in a public place. That is today's last question. So if ma'am, you would like to address that.
Yes, I think it has to start in little goes. Now, where the phobia developed and why the phobia developed is important to know. Did something happen as a child? Were there collective experiences? Was it that something embarrassing happened? Once as a child, when we go to restaurants, we may have dropped a spoon, or we may have done something embarrassing, or a plate might have broken, or we were eating with in public with there were other people, other social. Maybe it was a social function. So it can happen, but the thing is that you start with certain things that you can handle. Especially, I do not know by public place, you're meaning just a restaurant or you're meaning a social function like a wedding or a party. Uh, I have not understood that. If it was clearer, then I could go by bit, but even so, in a
Excuse me,
very
ma'am.
yes.
Ma'am, I was the person who asked the question.
Okay.
It all
Yes.
started a few
Hmm.
years back.
Hmm.
Actually, I was in a dinner party, so I
Hmm.
was feeling very nauseatic and I had
Hmm.
thrown up. So that caused an embarrassing feeling. So from
Hmm.
there, it had started and it continues till now.
Hmm.
I thought that I had overcome it, but
Hmm.
recently I experienced it again. So
Hmm.
it is like when I'm eating with my family in my home, it's perfectly fine, but
Hmm.
as soon as I go outside with some other people, then only that feeling comes back, and I know it is in my mind because
Hmm.
I can eat a lot, but I
Hmm.
am unable to eat because my mind tells me that I won't be able to finish my plate and I will embarrass myself again.
Hmm. So thank you for your very courageous, question. And it takes a lot of courage to be asking a question and to be able to say that I have asked that question. So something that happened long back, as I think from today's talk also, and you would have answered question answer session. Manisha ma'am has said, let's not cling on to those, the unpleasant experiences we've had in the past. But yes, what you could do is a bit of systematic desensitization, that whenever there's a social function or you have to go out to eat, maybe you can eat in little goes that day while you're home or you're at your school, college, or at your workplace, whatever you're doing, whatever profession you're in at presently, whatever occupation you have. So eat in little goes, eat not very nauseating. I mean, do not eat oily or fried foods but have low fat food. But keep yourself more or less not very full, but do not go starve yourself. And so when you go to a dinner party, start with finger foods maybe. No, and eat in little goes. Do not overeat. As you said, yes, you can eat a lot, but then what happened some years back, it could have been also that you were unwell. We do not. You also do not know what went wrong. You suddenly felt nausea and you threw up, and it's all right. I mean, that was not in your control. So you need to see that whenever there is a social function, we eat in little goes. That's very important. Even when we drink, the social drinking also, that's very important. We sip our drinks so that we do not create embarrassing moments for ourselves and for our host or for others who are there. So once you start doing it in little and force yourself, start, as you said, you are fine with your family and when people coming over home. So start with people who know you very well. Start going out with them, you know, and then you can start going out to the bigger parties where you do not know people, but you get introduced to them and you start making new acquaintances. Until the time that, perhaps you are in a corporate and you're going for a corporate party, and then you are also, so there are a lot of etiquette involved when we go for public functions or social functions when we have to eat. So I think if you start like that, your fear will gradually go. But do some relaxation techniques. As I said earlier, also, if it is very strong, your fear is very strong, then do something relaxing before you eat. As Manisha ma'am had given one cue, that take a deep breath. So whether it's a drink that you're going to sip, or whether it's something of finger food that you're going to bite in, take a deep breath and just tell yourself, I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to throw up. I'm just going to be all right. No, so say this to yourself again and again. Also, actually, you're not throwing up anymore. And you let us know, when you have your next party and you have not thrown up, so you can tell Rupanjali, right? And Rupanjali can tell us, yes, it was successful. Unless
Thank you,
Manisha
ma'am.
ma'am, yes, thank
And
you.
I'm a psychology student of
Yes,
first year.
yes, right. So definitely it will improve. Anything else?
That was a really courageous of you to come up and talk about
Hmm.
your problem. So I
Hmm.
genuinely hope ma'am has been able to answer your query, and I hope you have a better experience with eating out the next time you do so. And please keep us updated and let us know if your problem is helped by ma'am's advice. So ma'am,
Right.
one last question which
Hmm.
has come in the chat box. I know we've overstretched our time limit a
It's
bit,
okay.
but this
Hmm.
has come in the chat box. So somebody has asked that they joined the job after a long gap and they are finding it difficult to meet expectations from management. The rate of doing work is slower than expected. How can I improve? If you could answer this, please.
So would Manisha ma'am want to answer that? Okay.
Uh, yeah, if this person has joined after a long gap and is finding it difficult to meet expectations, yeah, I think that would, yes, if you can just give some amount of if you relax for a while and then if you just be open to everything and just take one step at a time. I think that would help. That if you can divide your work instead of focusing on a big task, instead of looking at the entire work, if you can break down the work into smaller chunks and can go and can address each and every piecemeal, then if you are able to do it successfully, that would help you to reinforce yourself, and you would have a better kind of expectation. You would also have a kind of better feeling at the end of the work is done, at the end, say, and you would move ahead. So if you, even though the rate of work is slower than expected, don't think that this is permanent. Yes, so just relax and see how things improved, see how things can be improved, see the entire situation. It's probably because you have joined the job after a long gap and it is difficult for you to meet expectations as you are really being able to understand. So the best possible way, I think, would be not to judge yourself, not to be over judgmental. Instead, uh, instead, do the work on a piecemeal basis, reward yourself if needed, and try to move along, gradually pick up the momentum, and you would feel unknowingly that your speed is increasing and you are making less errors, lesser and lesser errors. So that would help you to move forward in the long run.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope the person who asked this question has benefited from your response. So with that, we bring today's session to a close. Uh, I would like to, now for the vote of thanks, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed panelists, Dr. Monisha Dasgupta and Ms. Shampa Chaudhary, for coming on board with us and sparing time from their busy schedules to be a part of today's session. This session would not have been possible without the support we received from your end, ma'am. So thank you for your enriching and interesting inputs and for addressing the numerous queries that have been sent in by our respondents. I would also like to, now we're going to have the creatives for ma'am, for Dr. Monisha Dasgupta, and followed by the creators for ma'am Shampa Chaudhary. Could we have the creatives, please? These will be sent to you, sent to both of you. So this is just a small token of appreciation from our end to both of you, that you supported us throughout this session, and you have been supporting us in the previous session as well. So I genuinely am grateful for both of your contributions, and I hope we can continue this for a longer period of time and have follow-up sessions like these. Next, I would like to thank the members of the audience for bearing with us throughout the session and for their enthusiastic participation. Thank you for being with us and supporting us. Lastly, I would like to thank all my fellow Rotaractors for showing their support and making this event possible. Big thank you to all of you. And I guess we can bring this event to an end now. So we will definitely be having a follow-up session in the future. If you think your queries haven't been addressed, or if you want to come up with more queries, and please feel free to do so in the following few sessions that we might have. So we'll keep you updated, and keep following us on our social media handles, and keeping in touch with us, so that the next time we have another event like this, you can be a part of it once again. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you to both of you. And to a big thank you once again to everyone who participated in this event and made it a big success. So thank you. I hope you have a good rest of the evening. You can all start to
Thank you so
leave,
much.
I guess.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
also, yes, do our best to, give satisfaction, and you can also give us feedback, because
Yes.
that's the way we will also grow, and we will also
Yes.
know whether, these sessions are having some impact or not. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I think from the feedback we've received in the chat box, it has been we can see that it's all of it has been positive, actually.
Okay.
So I think events like this can benefit a lot of us if we continue doing this. So thank you to both of you once again.
Thank you so much. Good day.
Enjoyable rest of the evening.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, Manisha ma'am.